we're gonna wait until it says, okay, share to group. We'll do that first, and we will put in Family Forward Project. And then hang on here, just hang in there with me, guys. We know what will happen is DCS will get on the horn or get their legislative liaison to trot over to the General Assembly and talk about what wackadoodles we are, and that they shouldn't be listening to us, and that they really are doing a good job, even though the audit says they're doing a horrible job. So much better can hear you. Okay, good. So thank you. All right, Debbie, good to see you too. All right, so just what's your impression of the reception of how people treated us today?
It was good. For the most part, everybody knows what's going on with DCS. It's been just horror stories, and which is good, because they needed to know that this is, really happening, and we're not fabricating, what we're bringing to them. And so families are starting to speak up and call their legislators, which is what we need people to do, is let them know what is going on, with their cases and how DCS is interacting with them. They need to know.
Yeah, for sure. And I saw Charlene said, say hello to the Cash Gernon family. Yeah, Charlene and I talk about this a lot. And we talk about a lot of cases that she's following all over the country. So much is going on. I mean, there is so much crazy stuff going on. So we went, I'm just going to tell you how many we talked to today. So today, since that was just really, I think they just started yesterday.
Yeah.
I think they just had their opening session yesterday. So we just wanted to sneak in there before everybody get tied up in all their committees. And so we spoke to with tomorrow, and we have meetings set up. So we have a couple meetings set up for tomorrow, and then we're setting aside a couple other days. I'm not going to put online what those couple other days are, because I know DCS will come down here and will follow us. But if you are in the Middle Tennessee area or can make yourself available in the Middle Tennessee area, it'd be great to have a couple other people. I have come down here many times by myself. I'm so happy Bekura could be here with us today, because she really just adds that strength, that she has a personal story. She brought her family story down here, and and plus I believe in scripture, which says both of you, two people need to speak it, and then it gives it power, right?
Yep.
You invest all of the angels behind you, two of you speak it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there were 11 that we either spoke to, or we got an appointment, or we sat down and had a really good conversation with their legislative assistant. I created kind of a little hit list of what I want for an audit and some of the bills I want them to look at this year. I'm not going to put it out there to you. However, if you want to join us, please just message me and we will look at doing that. Also, I'm just going to go ahead and update you on a couple things. I think I put a post out there, or may have shared it, but the Pennsylvania Supreme Court entered an order opinion just very recently, within the past few days, and said that an anonymous report is not sufficient to create probable cause to compel a family to cooperate with an investigation. So it's a Fourth Amendment right for them to order them to let them in your home. And it's really based on three things. One of them is there's probable cause. Now I want to talk about that because I used to be a prosecutor, and Bekura has studied criminal justice. And so you know that if you're going to use a quote-unquote confidential informant to get a search warrant, you have to establish the credibility of that confidential informant. You can't just take an anonymous phone call that says, Susie has drugs under her bed. Honestly, I've seen crazy things like that, but you have to establish the credibility of the confidential informant. The second thing is you have to draw a nexus between what the actual complaint is and why you need a search warrant. So, for instance, if there's an anonymous report that your child is truant from school, there's not a nexus there, which would require DCS to go enter your home. So there has to be a nexus. And then the third thing is, hang on here. Be specific. So you have to, again, if you want a search warrant and it's for an allegation that there's drugs in your home, they can't just go in and just tear your house up. Now, they do it all the time and they're not supposed to, but you have to say specifically what you're looking for and where you believe you're going to find it. So those are the requirements to compel somebody to cooperate with an investigation or a search warrant. And so the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, this was a case where, actually I think the allegation was that she was homeless, which, I mean, technically there might be some nexus to her home, but they said no, that was not sufficient nexus for an anonymous report. Now, when you read this case, you can tell that this is some retaliation from somebody, that somebody was trying to get her kid away from her. So, but this is like really an important case. So I, when we were talking about, because Clay Doggett with the Tennessee General Assembly did last year put forth his anonymous reporting bill. And so when I spoke to his legislative assistant, I said, this is the, yeah, I do have that, Shar. So this is a critical thing to understand. Now, the medical kidnapping is something that, oh my gosh, we've worked on that for so long. And it just seems to get worse and worse and worse. But what we finally have now is Texas and Arkansas have done basically medical kidnap laws that require the parents to be able to have a second opinion or get a second opinion before their children are removed from them for child abuse, because we know the fractured ribs, even the hematomas. Oh my gosh, I've had it everything from metabolic diseases related to digestion, Crohn's disease, you know, where parents don't want to get biologics, you know, injected into their children, like Humira, which is really a big problem. So the medical opinion is very important. And then I made a hit list of about 10 or 12 things. One of the things that we were talking about today was licensing of social workers. So, because you were asking me about that. So why don't you speak to that a minute?
Most certainly. So in Tennessee, it is not a requirement that social workers be licensed, which is, you know, really nuts, because
DCS social workers.
DCS social workers, because then there's no accountability mechanism. If they are licensed, they're under a regulation body that monitors how they are supposed to do a thing. And so if they're not doing that thing, you can file a complaint, and that goes to their license, and you have an agency that's going to ensure that, well, supposed to ensure that these things
You're shaking the camera.
are done. So they should be licensed, and you would want them to be. They need to know what, you know, under that field of study, they need to know specifics about, you know, actual social work. Other than that, then they're just regular folks going in and extracting children from people's homes, and that's just ridiculous.
And they do have a national organization. I can't remember the name of it. It's like NA, National Association
of Social Workers.
Social workers or something, that they have an ethics, and they of course don't have to comply with all that. Now I want you to think about that, because if you work for the government, if you're a teacher, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, I mean, even though just because you work under the state taxpayers payroll, if you are working in a professional capacity, you still have to be licensed. So all the lawyers have to be licensed, all the doctors, all the teachers, right? You all have to have a licensure. There is no ethics and no, the ethics and no immunity. And immunity, we didn't even talk to them about that. We should have talked to them about that. But so, so the licensure is also really important. And so let's see, there was something else. Oh, there's a couple cases that came out. I think they're Massachusetts cases that I'm going to be sharing with you also, that just talks about competent legal representation. Because we talked about that, and we've talked about it with your family. So just tell us a little bit about how that
Wowzers.
Now, I mean, a lot of people follow her and they see her lives all the time. But her family is now 2 years into a DCS CPS case that started as a baby, now as a toddler. And so, I saw this baby just died. Sure, we're going to talk about that some more. But just say, I mean, maybe do you think your counsel taking your kid's counsel taking a different position would have affected it differently?
I think so. One of the attorneys that was on this case, and it's a severe abuse case, had just passed the bar 2 months ago. Like, there is no way he was ready to handle a severe abuse case. And he admitted that he didn't have any experience in it. And so, you know, when you're talking about removals and adoptions, which is a very real thing, in a short period of time, you have to have competent counsel. And the other attorney, even though she had been practicing for 7 years, had never handled any severe abuse case either. And so that puts the parents at a disadvantage when they're fighting a monolith like DCS, whose attorneys do DCS, work every day, know the policies, and can manipulate novice attorneys. And so that's where you'll get those attorneys that just say, just do what DCS does and we'll be okay.
Absolutely. No.
Not.
And I have to add something to this because y'all that are watching this know I'm an attorney and I have battled DCS for 27 years and they retaliated against me grossly. I have to say something about this issue she just brought up. I had a case about 6 years ago and I was trying to help the family on the DNN, and then DCS filed a TPR, and it was like, and I was like, look, you got to get a court-appointed attorney. So he got a court-appointed attorney for his appeal, who had never written an appeal, ever. And so I called him up and I said, look, I've done tons of these appeals. I will do it with you. I've already got a bunch of the research done. I've already got a bunch of the legal arguments done. I will do it with you, okay? Do you know they're trying to disbar me for doing that? Because the Court of Appeals entered an order that he was the court-appointed attorney and I didn't have the right to file anything.
How can he be a court-appointed attorney? How did they make him an attorney, an actual licensed attorney through order? That's not how it works. See, this is why it's nuts.
Yeah, he was, well, I mean, he was licensed, but he had never done an appeal, so.
And he didn't hire himself to be his own attorney.
Right.
So how could they appoint him when he didn't ask for, you know?
Right, yeah. So, I mean, they like are trying, they like made this huge big deal about it. I've had this whole hearing on it. I told them, I'm like, look, you guys should be thanking me because I took my time. I didn't charge for my time, all of my years of research, and I helped this attorney sit down, write it up, filed it. It had my name on it. Nobody complained about that. But then later you want to say, oh, you need to be sanctioned or disbarred because you were not the court-appointed attorney on this case. I mean, it's just like crazy.
But there's nothing against attorneys having a team of attorneys that help each other either. Because I hired an attorney for my daughter's attorney to help them because they didn't know.
Exactly. There is nothing that says you can't help a court-appointed attorney. So that's just how crazy it is and how much retaliation. So. But anyway, it's like a monolith is exactly right. I mean, it's huge. It's like trying to scale the Washington Monument with tennis shoes or something. I mean,
with heels on.
With heels on. So, but we had some really great conversations today. There are a few legislators who have responded through the Tennessee Tribune. There have been... the Tennessee Tribune has done probably 15 different stories, and I'm going to be printing those off for them. But they have really, hang on here, sorry about that. They have really started just trying to expose it from the family perspective and from the agency perspective as well. Just talking about how the agency is created and formed. So we are going to come back down tomorrow. We already have a couple appointments set up. And then we're coming back down in a couple weeks, about 10 days or so. And we are just garnering support for change. So, I say hello to a lot of people a lot. A couple people I saw in the hallway that I knew, and please check your messenger. Okay, so